understand that there's a distance between data and information. And then, once you have information within an organization, make it knowledge, something that everyone in the organization understands, becomes part of the culture. So you always need a question to understand what you want. And it's very important. Great data is not the license for bad econometrics. We have to understand the phenomena much better. And the example that I have just shown you is an example of what we have been doing with this partnership with State Street, is to understand exactly what data we have. We have 57 million prices. Do we need 57? Probably we need less to construct the inflation rate of the United States. And in fact, we use less. But we use the ones that are relevant to construct an index that now has information. And once we have information, we try to understand what type of knowledge we can acquire from that we can share and use positively for humankind and for our clients. In the end, what we want in the end is to understand how we can transform this vast amount of data in the world into something that we can use. 90% of the data points saved today in hard drives in the world, 90% of them have been created the last 3 years. 90% of the bytes that exist on Earth have been saved by somebody the last 3 years. Do you think we have more transparency today than 3 years ago? Or better knowledge today? Or better information? I don't think so. We are just saving more data points. We are just saving more phone numbers. We are not using the phone numbers properly to understand that. So this is my challenge. And I hope that part of this research inspires others. And there's several at MIT that we are working on trying to reduce that gap between the data and information. And it's, this is a place where the private sector can do a lot. And partnership with academia is something that we academics can benefit tremendously. And the reason is that it is the private sector usually the one that has the right question. And to be honest, I am useless as an investment advisor. I can assure you, I am useless. The fact that I am here just proves to you that I am probably a very bad investment strategist, okay? Otherwise, I will be, playing golf, doing something else. And I would have probably visited Kuwait way before than today. We have different abilities, and I know how to compute inflation. That's all that I know how to do. I need somebody to tell me, can you answer if this inflation is relevant for the poor? I say, oh, that's a good question. Yes, I can. I need somebody to ask me that question. And I think we academics in general, we are mesmerized by what we do, and we forget that that what we can do can actually improve individuals outside. And so I think the private sector has a very big role, and these partnerships have been shown to be very fruitful. So I want to leave this conversation as it is. And what I would like to know is if you have any questions, and start the questions and answer, and then try to have a conversation in that sense. I think that you have 4 microphones that will be roaming the aisles. So if you have any questions, raise your hand, and I don't know how they're going to operate. Either they give you the microphone or not. I will be directing all the questions from here. So, yes. Do we have a microphone? Yes.
Thank you, Professor, for an excellent seminar. You mentioned that inflation affects the poor disproportionately more than the rich. Now, is the effect of inflation on poor because of lack of purchasing power, or is it lack of information?
That was the case for Honduras, which is in Central America. And in fact, in Central America, the poor suffer more inflation than the rich. In Argentina, it's not the case. In Argentina, the poor have less inflation than the rich. So I think this depends on every country and depends on what you consume. Do I have anyone from Argentina in the audience? No. Well, actually, I'm part Argentinian. My dad is from Argentina. So imagine, I am from Venezuela and my dad is Argentinian. My mother is from Spain. my grandfather is from Italy. So I have all the past, present, and future crises on earth in my blood, okay? All of them, absolutely. In fact, I probably have a Greek ancestor somewhere, okay? So what happened in Argentina is that the poor eat a lot of meat, and meat, and meat, and meat, and meat, and that's it. They only eat meat and wine, and then more meat. So this depends actually on the consumption, what you consume. For example, usually the poor consume a much bigger proportion of food, transportation, I mean, because they have to pay a bigger portion of their salary on transportation, and housing services, either rents or housing. Than the rich. Is that okay? So usually those items in most countries suffer more inflation. So that's why usually the poor suffer more, but it's not always correct. The one that for sure has more inflation than anybody else are the individuals that are retired. The elderly consume a lot of health care, which is in every country on earth the item that increases at the fastest rate on earth. So, so the elderly suffer much more inflation than most of us here, all the retirees, yes. That is, I think, is true in every country. Thanks for the question. Any other question? Oh, yeah, I'll come back to you. Yes, and I have another one here, yes.
Well, after due thanks for your interesting insights, I'm Dr. Rania Azmi from Kuwait Investment Authority, and my question really is about your study for the data and information at the end of the day has to be translated into investment strategies. So my question is, did you notice any change or mutation in the relationship between inflation ingredients, if you like, the macroeconomics indicators, and how that changed from the past 5 years towards the next 5 years? My understanding for the past 5 years, the inflation was not the determinant factors investment-wise, but that could change for the next 5 years.
So, so there are like 3 questions on that question, so she's cheating actually. But so first, yes. First question, does the relationship between inflation and the macroeconomy changes through time? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. I think that right now in the world, in the developed nations, for example, inflation is not a big risk right now. The inflation is only a risk right now in emerging markets. In your country, in China, in Brazil, in Argentina, in Chile, the countries that have labor markets that did not suffer too much during the recession, those are the countries where inflation is a risk. And the relationship in those countries between inflation and the macroeconomy is very different from the relationship that exists, 10 years ago in the US between inflation and the macroeconomy in the US. So the relationship changes. One advantage of having daily data is that we can look at very short run to understand how that is changing, and that is changing. And therefore, the investment strategies need to take that into account. I really don't know. I mean, I really don't know how the Kuwaiti Investment Authority has changed their investment strategy regarding inflation. So I don't know, I don't know how other companies do it. I do know that in our research with the State Street Associates, we have seen that change. And in fact, I think I have a graph. See, this is the beauty. Yes, that's it. You see the black line switching from positive to negative? That's exactly how the relationship between the US dollar and the euro changed in the US when it moved from relatively high inflation in 2009 to the very low period of inflation right now. So the beauty is that we can actually detect those changes. And hopefully when you see those changes, you can make a decision about investment. This one here is the relationship between Brazil and Chile and how it has changed. So part of what we try to do is to understand in which circumstances you can change that. There was a question here. Yes. Do you have a microphone? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Is it on? There you have another one.
Thank you very much. My name is Suleiman Al-Qudsi. I'm from the Gulf Investment Corporation. And without further ado about your presentation and the organization of this meeting, I'd like to ask a few questions, and I'll be candid. A few questions, not one. The first is...
There's you, I'm going to take notes.
Okay. Would be very interested to know how, if Kuwait were to have high frequency data that measures the consumer price index or inflation, what are the steps that need to be taken? Is it private? Is it government? And what's the core team? And where do we start? This is extremely important because I don't know if you know this or not, but the GCC economies, including Kuwait, do not have the so-called leading economic indicators and coincidental economic indicators, some of which are consumer-based and CPI-based. This is my first question, which is really my foremost one. Secondly, I was not sure from your presentation if you are able to produce the producer's price index. I heard the CPI. Now, my third question is the implications of inflation expectations to investments of KIA and other sovereign wealth funds in the GCC and worldwide. Does the availability of high frequency derived CPI affect or change the investment strategies vis-a-vis the ones that are derived from census bureaus and the like? Final issue is, given the fact that people's wages are monthly and bonuses are annual, if I use your data and I see that the CPI is increasing by, let's say, 10% more points than the government or officially, then I cannot run to my employer and say, hey, Professor Rogoban is, data is showing 10% more, give me an increase today. And, I'm being facetious, but you get the point. Thank you very much.
Very good. So let me start with the last one. I actually have gone to my employer, the dean of the Sloan School, and show him my inflation rate to ask for a higher increase in wages. And it has not worked out. This is to provide information about the inflation rate. The wage contracts and the bonuses are paid annually, and the wages are increased annually. And so I don't expect this is going to change the labor market contracts. So you just have better information. And so you know roughly what is your inflation daily, and that's it. So let me go then to the first one. How to do it? We are already collecting information in Kuwait. Now, it takes me about 5 years since the moment I start to the moment I construct the first index. And I need to visit the country. And this visit is not going to count because I arrived this morning and I'm leaving tomorrow, so this is not count. And why I need to visit the country? I need to understand how the consumers buy. And I spend an afternoon and several afternoons at the store understanding how the people in Kuwait buy. And I know the names of the stores that I'm downloading, and then I spend time observing individuals, and I look very strange because I'm standing there next to the cashier following someone. So I look like someone trying to steal something. I look totally suspicious, I'm telling you. I have been kicked from so many stores, you have no idea. So but I have to learn how they buy, how they decide to bargain. You don't pay the price that is posted all the time, so I have to understand that. So it takes me about 5 years to do that. So how to do it? Well, one way is wait until I finish, because Kuwait is in the list. So from the Middle Eastern countries, I think Saudi Arabia, we have not been able to collect consistently data. So that will take a long, long time. We actually have inflation rate in Iran and countries like that, so that where the web pages are very stable. So, so not all countries have very stable information. Depends mostly on their stores. Now, it will take me a long time to visit Iran, no? As a US citizen, probably it's going to be hard for me. So it's not clear. I will learn how the stores behave. But that's one way. Now, the other way is we are teaching the statistical offices. So I belong to the Census of the United States, and my mandate in the census is to change the way how the census collects the data. Two of them. We are already changing the way the inflation rate is computed. And they are starting a pilot. I think this year they will start a pilot that will take 5 years for them to understand how to change the way